Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in my ongoing exploration of everything Overwatch lore and story related, it's time to take a look once again at the stories behind the skins. Many of Overwatch's skins have rich historic and cultural references behind them that give some cool background to the lore and stories of our favourite heroes and villains. Some are canon and directly show us things about the characters, most very much aren't, but either way, they have awesome details that I'll be explaining in this series. In this video, I'll be taking a look at the story and history behind Mei's Jiangshi Halloween skin. We'll be taking a trip into the world of Chinese folklore and burial traditions, the spooky origin of Jiangshi stories, and a bit about how the theme of the skin both fits in with this and also Mei's story too. Before you can understand the details of the skin, firstly you have to know what a Jiangshi actually is. Known as a Chinese hopping vampire, a Jiangshi is often mistaken for a zombie, and in Chinese legends and folklore is a kind of reanimated corpse. Jiangshi are typically depicted as a stiff body dressed in official garments from the Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China, established in 1636 and ruling China until 1912. The Chinese character for Jiang literally means hard or stiff. These creatures are pictured as moving around by hopping with their arms outstretched, killing living creatures to absorb their qi or life force, usually at night, while at night they hide in dark places such as caves or in coffins. Unlike vampires or the stereotype of them that we know, the older, if there is one, depiction of Jiangshi say that they don't drink blood or desire immortality or such things like this. So where were Jiangshi meant to have come from? Well, in the Qing dynasty, various scholars, albeit they in books of these supernatural or kind of ghost stories, gave two main sources, either a recently deceased person returning to life, or a corpse that has been buried for a long time but has not decomposed for some reason. Jiangshi's appearances can range from the unremarkable, as in the case of someone who's recently passed away, to absolutely horrifying, with rotting flesh, rigor mortis, and more such horrifying features. Now, like any creature of myth or legend, there are many potential ways to stop a hopping vampire in its tracks. These range from mirrors. Jiangshi are said to be terrified of their own reflections, that may sound familiar to you, as well as items made of wood from a peach tree. Now, peach wood in Chinese spiritual world concepts, and particularly Taoist exorcism, is the definitive weapon or wood to be used to exorcise demons. Other potential counters include a rooster's call, because it usually occurs with the rise of the sun, jujube seeds, which are cited in Chinese medicine as being quite healthy for a range of different things, ringing a handbell, a Taoist talisman stuck on the forehead to immobilise the Jiangshi when it's firmly stuck on, or even dropping a bag of coins apparently causes the Jiangshi to count the coins. Now that last one's a little bit odd, it might be to do with the stereotype of the Mandarin that we'll talk about a bit later in this video, but should you ever encounter a hopping vampire, you now have a few things to protect you. Okay, so that's a bit about what a Jiangshi is meant to be, but what's the history behind this myth? Well, during the Qing dynasty, it was quite common for migrating workers working far from their home to be returned should they die for a proper burial when they passed away. This was to prevent departed spirits from becoming homesick. If relatives lacked the funds to get their sadly departed family member's body home, they would often pay someone to do it for them. Now, this could be a Taoist priest or official, or often people called corpse drivers. Now, rows of the recently deceased were actually transported on bamboo poles. They were kind of lined up a little bit like shirts on a clothes rack and carried through the night on shoulders of two men. The flexing of the bamboo poles as people carried these bodies passed by created this illusion of the corpses bouncing when moved from afar, and this is probably where part of the hopping myth came from. These bouncing corpses would travel at night, probably to minimise the decay, while the priest leading the procession might ring a bell to deter onlookers. To gaze upon a Jiangshi was considered bad luck even before they took to trying to snack on humans, perhaps. You can see from this slightly ghoulish procession during the night how this kind of myth and mystique sprung up around it. Corpse drivers were said by some to magically bind the wrists, ankles and knees of the body, forcing it upright and then poking them so that they would hop home under their own steam. Although some people speculate that the stories about Jiangshi were originally made up by smugglers who disguised their illegal activities as corpse transportation and wanted to scare off law enforcement officers looking for them. It would be a fairly gruesome but kind of useful cover, particularly if they were working at night. So, what interesting details are there on the Jiangshi Mei skin that tie into this? Well, the first is the paper talisman attached to her head. Taoist priests would attach these to the heads of the dead, often with illegible characters written on them in red ink or blood. It was commonly believed that with incantations, the priest could activate the talisman, which could inhibit the Jiangshi's actions. If the priest had activated the talisman, then they could, in theory, ring a special bell that with every ring would command the Jiangshi to take a single jump. And as we mentioned before, as Taoist priests or corpse drivers would ring a bell ahead of them moving a body during the night, whatever the bell represents, we can see that Mei also has one hanging off her backpack. Another nice little detail. Now, as well as the yin and yang symbols showing opposite or contrary forces being complementary and interconnected, a symbol also related to Taoist philosophy. Looking at Snowball's colours, his presence on the talisman paper symbols, and the little symbol on his head, I think it's possible that he might meant to be coloured as a Taoist priest. Now, here's a couple of outfits to show you what I mean. If that's the case, then Snowball is probably meant to be the one in control of Mei and making her hop, and if you look at her hopping emote, you can see that Snowball kind of laughs and puts his eyes up every single time that Mei hops. So I do think that he's meant to be the one controlling her here. Again, if so, that's a nice little touch. Mei is also dressed in a coat-like robe and round-top tall rimmed hat characteristic of a mandarin, an official from during the Qing dynasty. Now, in myth it usually takes decades for an unattended body to become a Jiangshi. This is why they're shown in Qing dynasty attire as a result, particularly in any modern films made that are set in modern China or Hong Kong. The closest previous era would be the Qing dynasty, and it's to these more modern depictions of Jiangshi that Mei owes a lot of her skin references to. Jiangshi movies are a subgenre of film in themselves. Highly popular in the 1980s and 1990s for a spell in Hong Kong cinema, the modern depiction of the mandarin-clad, greenish-white-skinned, red-cheeked Jiangshi is in a lot of films from this period. Throughout this video I've been showing you little clips from a film called Mr. Vampire, which is regarded as being the breakthrough film of this particular genre. And you'll see just how similar in some ways Mei's look looks to the Jiangshi pictured in this film. The modern visual depiction of these horrific Qing officials might have been from an anti-Manchu or anti-Qing sentiment of the Han Chinese population, as the officials were viewed as bloodthirsty creatures with little regard for humanity. A little bit of Chinese history there. These modern depictions of Jiangshi have also blurred the lines between them and other horror figures. The English translation of Jiangshi itself as hopping vampire may have been, to some, a marketing ploy from Hong Kong film studios eager to enter Western markets. At the same time, the influence of Western vampire stories did come to bear on Jiangshi in Hong Kong cinema. Traditionally, Jiangshi would steal the breath from someone, their spirit, their qi. But as the popularity of the films grew for a short time, blood-sucking, an aspect not normally associated with Jiangshi, came into play in some of these films. So, in a combination of comic horror and kung fu, Jiangshi movies are out there. Well, what of Mei and links to the Jiangshi? Well, you could say in her lore there's not too much to link her, apart from she's had a near-death experience. However, the community has jokingly dubbed her a vampire, cruel and cold as she freezes people before killing them with her icicles. So, as well as being a bit of a community in-joke, this really fits Mei in terms of Chinese culture well for Halloween and spooky times as well. Most people call Mei the devil. If you have any more lore theories, then please do let me know what they are in the comments. Okay, we've learnt about the shared history behind the Jiangshi themed skin and Mei. Finally, for some fun, let's have a quick look at where you can see references to Jiangshi in other things you might enjoy today. Outside of the Jiangshi film genre, the trope of the Jiangshi has been used in a lot of video games. The character Shenko from the Darkstalkers fighting game is based on Jiangshi. In 2012's Sleeping Dogs, they were a common enemy type in the game's downloadable content Nightmare in North Point. Now, I didn't actually notice this, but some people say that Jiangshi are actually enemies in the Chai Kingdom, the fourth and final world of the 1989 Game Boy game Super Mario Land. I played that game a lot, and I never knew that those were Jiangshi, but I guess it fits with the Chinese semi-themed level. If you've ever played Spelunky, then Jiangshi are an enemy type in that game. There were a mini-boss as well in Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, and in Kingdom Hearts 2 finally, the Nightwalker Heartless enemies. These primarily appear in the Land of Dragons, are based on Jiangshi as well. Check out that paper talisman on their head. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, do throw a like, share it, comment with what you think in the comments below about your favourite skins, and do subscribe for more if you enjoyed. I've done a whole series on the lore, culture and history behind various Overwatch skins. For more Overwatch lore and story explanation, cultural references and analysis, as well as hero lore, interactions, voice lines and news from the world of Overwatch, do check out my playlists linked here. As always, big thanks to my supporters on Patreon. Without whom these videos would not exist. If you'd like to see how you could support the channel from just maybe $1 a month, do check out the link here too. Until next time, I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.